I'm going to bring these over here to the bandsaw now that they're on here, and I'm going to cut these off. And I'm not going to show you exactly how I do it. Maybe I will. But you guys are probably going to get mad. But hey, it works. And this is how I use my bandsaw with one hand. Spin, spin, spin. You're doing so good. Hey, spin, spin, spin. Spin, spin, spin. Are you getting dizzy? Are you getting dizzy? Spin, spin, spin. Spin, spin, spin. You getting dizzy? Go, go, go. Spin, spin, spin. I get a little more into detail about what's going on here later in the video, but right now I'm using the dial calipers to mount some fittings into the fuel cell here. The dial calipers help me find my center, then go through and just use a good center punch and using the drill to go through here. While doing aluminum, you gotta make sure you go through with the file and clean out all the burrs, especially in a fuel cell. And before you weld in your bungs, your last bung, you gotta make sure you clear it all out. So guys, we'll give you a little bit of an update what's going on here. You know, Nick did what Nick does and skipped half this stuff, but you can see here, right? This was one finals that we ran on 7 cylinders. There's a couple on the other side. This is the exhaust rockers. That one might be an intake. That's an intake one that ripped out the rocker stud. But we're gonna have to go out here, smash these up. Eventually, I want to get some new valve covers, but you know, that's not really in the budget right now. So we'll lay these down on a piece of wood, and we'll dolly this back flat. And we got these pieces from Cunningham Machine, scratch and dent and stuff. So, but Cunningham Machine, these are breathers. Before we had this setup here that I came up with and came from here to there, and on the Dirty 30 actually had, they went into tanks here and the breather set here basically. But we actually run a puke tank on straight Gangster here, a breather tank more or less, so that all this stuff runs through a hose all the way into the back of the car. Why does it go through a hose? Because straight Gangster is not a double frame rail car. It is not a tube chassis car, so the lines, I don't have any frame rails that go from the front of the car all the way to the back of the car, so we actually have to run it through a tube, through a line. So these guys, we're going to mount them probably something like this here. Why here and not here? Turbo plumbing and stuff like that. So we're going to probably mount these suckers somewhere in here. And then we're going to drill up here as high as we can, so it is on a downward slope a little bit, just so, you know, the stuff will run back down into the valve covers that we don't want coming out. But those do have baffles in them and stuff like that. There's some pretty nice pieces. So I'm going to go through here, clean this all up. We'll have one on this side, one on that side. And when we go to vacuum up the motor, we disconnect one of them and we hook up one of them to the vacuum. So then it actually going to cycle in air from fresh air out of that valve cover. It'll come down through. And when the vacuum is hooked up to this side, it actually cools the whole motor down because it's sucking fresh air through that valve cover, underneath the intake, and out this valve cover, and will create a nice cooling effect. So guys, we are at the back of Straight Gangster. This is the breather for the puke tank. It is an old 1-gallon fuel cell that's sitting underneath there. We do have that set up here, and you'll see, especially on a cold night, you'll see steam coming out of here. The methanol vapors, essentially. There we have like the little scrubbies that you get from for washing dishes and stuff like that, whether it's the copper ones or the stainless ones, and they're expanded in there to help baffle the bottom. So it comes in through the bottom and vents out the top, and there's a drain on the bottom of it as well, so that any condensation of methanol or a little bit of oil mixed in with it. We drain that out basically every race or every couple races. There's not a lot of stuff that gets back here as long as the motor is healthy. But if the motor has an issue, well then that sucker's gonna fill up a little bit. A quick little trick for you guys that don't use hole saws often is take the hole saw off and hold it onto the piece so you can mark your center. These pieces from Cunningham machine work out pretty well. The baffles are pretty dang nice. They're scratch and dents, but most things on the Straight Gangster are scratched and dented. It's a pretty low budget build for what it is. The hammer and dolly, yeah, we had to work out the valve covers a little bit. I spent some time with the DA sander, and then at the end of the video, I make sure we use some appliance epoxy paint. It's a spray can, but it hardens really well. So guys, we have these burned down tubes from Cunningham machine, and we're getting ready to swap over the breather system and stuff like that on Straight Gangster. So we're gonna go through here, we're gonna line these up about how we want them. I had to go through and hammer and dolly this stuff a little bit, just using a hammer and a dolly, because these are the valve covers. Give me a second right here. These are the valve covers that we ran on the Dirty 30. Then we ran them on the Homegrown Hustler, and they were in the fire of the Dirty 30, along with the cylinder heads that are sitting in that room over there that I want to get sent out and get cryo treated or something like that, or get time search put in all the exhaust and intake rocker studs so that we can reuse them as, or have them as spares basically in the trailer. But long story short, the studs would rip out, and I think we ran 3 finals with the Homegrown Hustler. We had that car 7 months, and I think we ran 3 or 4 finals on 7 cylinders because the rocker studs would strip out. They'd strip out, I'd go through and I'd put, run a Healy coil in the thing and hope for the best. But yeah, there's times where we just didn't have time to put in a Healy coil, so we'd run it on 7 cylinders. But long story short, I had to hammer and dolly some of those dents out of there. So I already did the one. We're gonna go through here, and I'm gonna put this in here basically how I want it. And we're actually, I put the holes in the firewall a little bit higher than this so that it is a downward slope into the valve cover. If I was building a car from scratch, not saying I didn't build this car from scratch essentially, but if I was building a double frame rail car, these guys would be facing forward and they'd go into the frame rails and then into the frame rail to the back of the Puke tank. But since this is a factory frame from the firewall forward, there's no real tube to run these things down in there. And I don't know. Long story short, we don't have tubes in the chassis that run all the way from the front of the car to the back of the car, so we can't do it that way. So I'm gonna go through here. I'm gonna trace this out just with it's just a good scribe. There's other ways to go about this, but that's pretty square on there. Oh, that's pretty damn right. Okay. So I already did the work on these. These guys are 3 3/4 inches center to center, 3/750. You can measure that all the way from one end to one end. You don't measure it from center to center. You measure it from top to top or bottom to bottom. That puts that 3/750. Okay. Then we know our scribe line here, 1/750. So it was 875, I believe. Would be 875 close to the center. Yep. So we're gonna go through here. Oh my goodness. Okay. Then we're going to actually put this thing on backwards here so that we can extend our square line all the way out. I think that makes sense. Mm-hmm. What we're doing here is, even though the side is tapered, we're going to put the square side on that side. so that we can measure from this line down 8750. And we're measuring from the top and bottom because, you know, our scribe line is going to be slightly off. Okay. So this video doesn't drag on too long. What I'm basically doing here is using the dial calipers to go through and mark out what is going to be the holes for the studs. By flipping the deal backwards here, we're able to extend our center line, and measuring from both sides helps negate the deviation when marking your holes here. Of course, it's not going to be perfect, but you can get it really, really dang close within, you know, a lot more accurate than the drill bit's going to be using a hand drill. So it doesn't have to be super, super accurate. We're just going through and getting everything in line so that we could get these suckers on the car and get ready to get back to racing. Alrighty guys, that's looking pretty good on there. Now we're going to turn these into studs, right? We're gonna go through here and we're going to put these bolts in here and we're going to Loctite them into the Cunningham machine, the down piece here. Now, after we do that, I'm also going to put some nuts on there. And I'll walk you through this process, but we cut the head off, the bolt off, then we run the nut off to clean up the threads. And we'll have basically two small studs sitting down in there. But now, after we got this done, we need to go drill through and drill our holes for our breather. All right, guys, YouTube Superstar going on here, and the furnace just turned on. So we're going to drop a little drop and a drop. And we're going to run these in here, and we will tighten those down. And then, why is there a nut on there? That's because the nut is going to help clean up the threads. And when you're doing Loctite, if you move it back and forth a little bit, it actually seats in there a little bit easier. Gets in all the threads instead of just, you know, pushing it up because, you know, there's pressure in there. That's why it's bubbling. You can see, that's why the Loctite is bubbling. But if you move it back and forth, it actually walks in there on the threads. So, yeah. So these right here, I'm going to tighten these up, and these are going to be studs. Then after these are tight, we're going to back these down, and I'm going to cut off the heads of the bolts. And these are fully threaded bolts here. So we're going to cut the heads off, and these are going to act as our studs to go through the valve cover. They are nice and short. I already made sure that they cleared the stud girdle, so we'll be good to go. I'm going to bring these over here to the bandsaw now that they're on here, and I'm going to cut these off. And I'm not going to show you exactly how I do it. Maybe I will. But you guys are probably going to get mad. But hey, it works. And this is how I use my bandsaw with one hand. So now that we got this on here, when we back this nut off, it's going to clean those threads right up. So now there's going to be a big burr on these threads, but when we back these nuts off, they'll clean right up. Then we got our studs in there. So you can see these guys are pretty clean. They make this really cool tool that's a countersink. So it goes in the drill, and you just just push it up against the threads there, and it levels them out and cleans them up real nice. And then the nuts go on there nice and easy. But you know, that's one of those wishes and not the you know, not actuality. So putting a nut on there, backing them off, cleaning them up a little bit, that works. And then once these guys are dried off, once the valve covers are dry, we're going to go through and put this back together. Jeremy's car is coming together pretty good. This thing's going to be pretty cool. This is his 33 Willys. That's hopefully going to make it to SickWeek. I welded up the bungs on the fuel cell and stuff like that earlier today. So, got the bungs on there. This is going to be a fuel gauge setup here. Believe it or not, you can't really get a sending unit in there. This is really close to the top of the rear window and stuff like that, so you can't really get a sending unit in there. So we're actually going to use 1/8 inch. Oh my goodness, it kind of looks like I'm working. I do need to, you know, trim up a little bit. Christmas and New Year's, like I said, we are really trying to work really, really hard to try to get straight Gangster over to the pad. because I feel like we would have had a pretty good car for that deal. But it is what it is. So long story short, I'm looking a little bit shaky because, you know, no time to cut the hair. But what we're gonna do here, these are 1/8 inch MPT fittings, or 1/8 inch MPT threads. So we're gonna go through with a compression fitting, not a push lock, because push locks, they're not bad, but like for here, we're gonna use a compression fitting with like an 1/8 inch like oil pressure gauge line, right? Oil pressure is good for 120 PSI line. It is good with different fuels and oils and stuff like that. So there's just going to be a little mechanical gauge, kind of like on your lawnmower, right? And you'll be able to open up the trunk and be able to see how much fuel you have in it. Then got dash 10 return here. That's going to be capped. That's going to be capped off for right now because it is the blower motor, just carburetor and EFI. You can see this blower sitting back over there. But eventually that might go EFI. So with the EFI system, gonna need a return. So that's gonna get capped off right now. We added another 10 at the bottom and little stuff like that. So I didn't make that tank. The person that started building this car did the tank, I believe. They did really nice work on the tin work. At least the firewalls, yeah. But like the whole inside of the tin work and stuff like that is done pretty dang nicely. The whole interior tin work back here and stuff like that. I'm probably gonna clean it up a little bit just to make it a little bit more appealing to the eye. But yeah, this satin copper color, it's either gonna be the dirty penny or the last penny. They don't know what it's gonna be yet, but it is gonna be like a nostalgia class type car. Pretty cool deal there. It is Chuck Finder's body, old school. I don't know how old that body is, but it's old, probably from like, I want to say 60s or 70s or something like that. Like, it's old. Well, guys, we're going in the shop. What are we going to get done today, Smiley? Want to finish off the breather tubes and the valve covers? We need to go buy some lines, so we can't really finish it. But then maybe we'll scale the car, set all the right height, then maybe we'll start working on mapping out the 4-link brackets and stuff like that. I think we're going to go after the 4-link setup here. Not 100% sure, but we'll find out. So guys, maybe come back in the next video here. I'll be able to try to get it up, maybe upload it for Tuesday. But me and Smiley Miley got to working on the 4-link, and we did just get it done. We're getting ready to put the car back together and hopefully get it on the dyno before we head to SickWeek. But the next couple days here, we'll be getting Jeremy's 33 together to try to make it down there in time.